Hey YouTube, Rob here, bringing you a brand new video. I'm doing another DVD Blu-ray update, which is what I normally do. Just some sort of stuff that I've bought recently and sort of got around to watching. I've got a mixture here again of Blu-rays and DVDs. So we'll get into it, because I do tend to talk a fair bit and some people don't seem to like that. I've had a few comments about that. But anyway, moving on. Don John here, which I think came out last year, and a lot of people were, raving on about and saying it was really good. It's actually sort of directed by, written by, and starring Jordan. I can't talk today. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Also got Scarlett Johansson and Julianne Moore here. Oh, and also Tony Danza as well, which is an interesting surprise. I like to be in this movie. Yeah, it's a bit hard to, I don't know, it's sort of a bit hard to explain the storyline of this one. I think Chris Stuckmann did a really good review of it, so I might perhaps leave a link to his video. He can perhaps explain it better than I can. I think overall, though, I thought it was alright. It essentially sort of just talks about, I guess in some ways, the modern relationship between men and women, and there's sort of, in some ways, they're sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Expectations of what, what a relationship should be like. You've got Justin Gordon-Levitt here, and he's very much I don't know, in some ways a bit stuck up, perhaps. He's only sort of cares about, a few different things, like his car, working out, and of course trying to pick up, or having one night stands with beautiful women, sort of thing. And his friends sort of stand around talking about trying to rate women out of 10, which some sort of a lot of guys do. We've also got Scarlett Johansson here, and she's very much into sort of watches a lot of romantic comedies and sort of these sort of movies that aren't necessarily based in any sort of reality. They're rather sort of fanciful sort of thing. Same with Justin Gordon-Levitt here. He's very much, he watches a fair bit of porn, and we all know that porn's a very unrealistic example of sex. You know what I mean? So it's just sort of about that and the relationship together, and anyway, I was not going into too much detail. I didn't mind it though. I just sort of felt perhaps the third act to it, I thought was just really underdeveloped, and for me that just really spoilt the whole film. I mean, the whole sort of, the third act of a film is supposed to be sort of your overall statement of the whole movie, and I think if you've got a bad, third act, that sort of, the whole movie's bad, if that sort of makes any sort of sense. And I think Julianne Moore was a bit sort of underused, and I think her character was, not necessarily portrayed that very well in the movie. I think she could have, I think there needed to be a bit more writing in terms of her character. Anyway, but it was a very interesting film though. I did actually quite enjoy the premise to it, and it did sort of remind me a lot of Shame, which I think came out 2012 with Michael Fassbender. That was a great movie, really good. I actually really quite enjoyed that one. That was probably one of the best movies I've sort of seen for quite a while, actually, that one. But I think this is definitely worth recommending. I think it's definitely worth a watch. I think, even though I did sort of have a lot of problems with the third act, and I think it could have been a bit better. I think it definitely had a lot of promise to it. So as Don John. Another film I sort of have perhaps the same sort of feelings about. Another film that a lot of people had sort of recommended and sort of said it was a bit of a an underrated film that not many people sort of know about. That's Sling Blade, directed by Billy Bob Thornton. I'm pretty sure this is his very sort of first sort of film he's ever sort of directed. It came out in 1995. Another film that I think goes for like, I think it's like 2 hours and a half. I think it's a rather really long sort of film. And again, it was, I actually quite liked the premise to it, and there was some Billy Bob here Billy Bob here actually sort of plays the main character, and I thought that was a really great performance by him. Absolutely, just, you know, I'm surprised he didn't actually sort of win an Oscar for his performance, because it was definitely a great sort of transformation. You know, you couldn't sort of tell it was, you know, Billy Bob Thornton. So you're sort of about, or just sort of a Forrest Gump character maybe in some ways. I mean, I'm not sort of spoiling anything, because this sort of does sort of happen in the first 10 minutes of the film. We sort of find out that this, I think he's like a 12-year-old kid, basically, you know, sort of killed his mum and some other guy. Sort of perhaps going into details of the reasons why. You can sort of watch the film for that. But anyway, he killed his parents and killed his mother when this other guy, and so he sort of gets sent to a mental hospital. I think because he's, well, I don't know, he's retarded, I guess. I don't know, you know, that's what they sort of called him, you know. I'm sure there's a bit better etiquette word to use than retard, but anyway. So instead of going to jail, he gets sort of sent, you know, this mental hospital, and for some reason I don't think it's really explained very well. He gets released 20 years later. He gets released. I suppose I guess he's, you know, his 20-year, you know, sentence has been up, I guess, but it's, you know, it seems odd that they're going to release this, you know, mentally handicapped person into the world, you know, all by himself, sort of thing. It doesn't sort of get much help. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, so he just he sort of gets released, and it's just sort of about him on the outside. Very much, again, perhaps like the Shawshank Redemption with, is it the Red character when he sort of leaves prison? Just about him, you know, trying to survive, and but it was, as if it was a very long film, and in some ways I did sort of perhaps find it a little bit too long. I'm pretty sure they sort of could have cut out a fair bit of storyline to it. It was very much sort of a half film, because half of it I actually quite enjoyed. As I said before, I did quite like the premise, and I thought that Billy Bob, he was actually quite good in his character, and but certainly on the side, you know, I did sort of quite enjoy. But there was also sort of half the film, other sort of half the aspects of the film, there was so really not particularly great acting in it, and very sort of slow scenes, and some actions by some of the characters just didn't sort of make a whole lot of sense to me. But it definitely, yeah, it just had a lot of sort of touchy moments to it. I thought in some ways a bit of a sort of sad story, and but definitely a film I think probably, you know, same with Don John, is definitely probably a film that would be sort of worth watching. I think at least once. It was definitely had some good sort of aspects to it. Yeah, so that's Sling Blade. Then I went to my local sort of video hire place, and they had some extra rentals for sale, so I sort of picked them up because they were going to be cheaper to buy them sort of, you know, extra rental than it was to buy them brand new. So I got the Hobbit, the Decimation of Smaug. I feel that I did sort of, you know, quite enjoy it in the cinema when I did watch it. I did sort of rewatch it again the other day, actually. I'm a big sort of fan of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, and I did sort of quite enjoy the first Hobbit movie. I think some people say it was a little bit slow, a little bit boring movie, which I can sort of see, I suppose, in some ways. This one's a bit more entertaining and has a bit more action to it, and the only real problem I had with it, some of the CGI is a bit sort of overdone, I think, and some of the action scenes are a little bit sort of over the top, and, you know, very, very sort of very unrealistic, I think, in some ways. But definitely, I guess that's half the fun, though. You sort of got to have some good action scenes to it, I guess. But yeah, definitely a good movie, though, I think. I'm looking forward to the third one when it comes out. So that's The Hobbit. I picked up the Prisoners, which is supposed to be... I haven't watched this one yet, but sort of bought that with The Hobbit. So that was part of... I think it was like... Pretty sure if you sort of bought two, you got one free. So I sort of did manage to pick up sort of 3 titles. But I've heard lots of good things about this one, so I'm definitely looking forward to giving this one a watch. I'm pretty sure some people put this on their number 1 of last year, so hopefully it should be a good movie. A bit of a film classic from, was it 1978? A bit of a original Piranha. I'm a bit of a fan of the sort of the recent remakes, the Piranha 3D and Piranha Double 3D. I actually quite enjoyed this one. I thought it was actually really good. It reminded me a lot of, pretty sure it's The Burning, I think. sort of summer camp, you know, type thing to it. So you sort of the start of the film, you've got these two teenagers, and they sort of end up sort of breaking into this, or going exploring and sort of breaking into this sort of military compound and falling into some water, which is obviously, you know, full of piranhas. They sort of get eaten up and they sort of go missing. So then these, I don't know. Anyway, this is sort of the main female character. She sort of comes along to try and find these two teenagers and sort of find out what's happened to them, and she, you know, sort of ends up sort of releasing all these piranhas into the local sort of, you know, water supply, and she's got to spend the rest of the movie, you know, trying to stop it, you know, trying to stop them, sort of thing. But definitely, yeah, good movie though, I thought. Definitely a good sort of one of those films that they don't sort of make today, like they, like you sort of, this is a, you know, I've sort of read a bit behind the scenes on this one, you know, sort of one of the sort of like a, you know, low budget film, and, you know, there's problems during the filming and sort of stuff, but yeah, it's a really well known movie, I think, really, just really sort of fun, perhaps a bit cheesy in some spots, and but definitely some, you know, great sort of practical effects to it, and, you know, good sort of story to it, and, you know, you sort of get sort of films that are made today sort of spent like, you know, 5 times the amount of money that this movie was sort of spent on, and yet they're not as good, you know, they're not sort of fun or compared to, you know, this film that was, you know, low budget with, you know, filming problems, you know. It's, I don't know, I just sort of find that really interesting, I think. But definitely a good movie though, actually. Yeah, I did quite enjoy that one. That's Piranha. Bit of a sort of horror classic. It's another cinema cult release. This one's called Vampires, which I think I might have shown perhaps before, but I haven't sort of watched it at that point. This is another good movie, I thought, sort of about lesbian vampires, which, you know, you can't go wrong with that. I just sort of find it perhaps a little bit boring, maybe, though, just slightly. You sort of got these two vampires, and they sort of lure these men to up to their house, and, you know, end up sort of, you know, killing them, sort of thing, and drinking their blood, you know. I guess it's, you know. Anyway, sort of to explain it, I guess. But I thought it was actually pretty good though. Yeah, a little bit boring maybe, but still a sort of really sort of horror hammer type. But definitely, you know, it wasn't a bad movie though, I thought. So that's Vampires. A French film starring Audrey Tautou, because I'm a huge sort of fan of hers. This is I think this is, well, I was going to say this is one of her last films, but I think she's sort of made another 2 since then. I've sort of been a bit behind the times, I think, and sort of, you know, trying to get her movies. This one, I don't know how on earth to pronounce that, so I won't even attempt. I think it's Teresa or something, which I'm pretty sure is her name. This wasn't too bad, I thought. A bit of a sort of slow burning type movie. Basically, she sort of comes from a very sort of rich family, and she's going to be, you know, it's like an arranged marriage to this other guy who's from another rich family. I think sort of both sort of families sort of both own sort of pine tree plantations. So I think that's the idea that they're sort of, you know, going to link together and just make one big sort of company or something, you know, something like that. But of course, she doesn't really particularly want to get married, and I think it's sort of set in the 1920s, so it's a very where, you know, sort of women are very sort of what's what I'm looking for here, very much in their place, I suppose. I can't think of a better way to describe it, but you know, she's, you know, you sort of get, there's a time when they sort of did sort of have arranged marriages, and, you know, she couldn't feel like she could probably, you know, say no to that, you know, if you know what I mean. So she sort of has, she's very much a sort of in some ways a bit of sort of a free spirit, and sort of has her own ideas. She's, you know, where I guess women are supposed to be, you know, cook and clean and have children. They're not supposed to sort of think about things. Where that's, you know, that's the men's job, you know, sort of thing. So she sort of thinks, well, maybe once I get married, then I might, these ideas in my head, you know, they might go away, and that's what she's sort of led to believe, maybe in some sort of way. So she sort of gets married, and she's not particularly happy with it, and I won't sort of say what sort of happens to sort of dissolve the marriage, but it's sort of quite interesting. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good film though. It was very much, I was perhaps a little bit confused by it, and perhaps not necessarily quite, I don't think I personally quite understood what it was all about. And I think perhaps in some ways it wasn't necessarily supposed to be a point to it. I think it's just more about just sort of her life and sort of, I don't know, I guess in life things just sort of happen to you, and you don't, in some ways you don't necessarily have choice in it, and perhaps you sort of don't feel like you necessarily have control of your own life, in some ways. I think I watched this one the other day. I'm still trying to, digest it a little bit. But definitely I thought it was pretty good though. It was sort of a slow burn, and pretty sure I can't remember the director's name, but I'm pretty sure this is his last film. I think he sort of died, I think like a year or two after, I think, this one, or something like that. Yeah, so that's that one. Pretty good, I thought. I picked up a 4-pack of Robert Rodriguez films. El Mariachi, Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, and Machete. I've been sort of wanting to pick up these 3 films for quite a while. I think one of my friends, he's a big sort of fan of these 3 movies, and he used to sort of talk about them a fair bit. I haven't sort of seen it for years, so I sort of wanted to give him another watch. I already do sort of own Machete, but I guess it comes free, I guess. So that's that's all right. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to giving that a bit of a watch at some point. On to the DVDs now. It's another X rental. This one's My House in Umbria, starring Maggie Smith and Ronnie Barker's last film. He's a very one of the best comedians that ever lived. Ronnie Barker. This is a really good film. I've actually sort of found this one a few times before, actually, I think. I don't think there's a Blu-ray release though, which is, I think I've sort of been wanting to hang out for that, but this is pretty cheap, so I just sort of managed to pick it up. Essentially, sort of about Macbeth here, and she sort of lives in the countryside and sort of has this really nice sort of old house, and I think in Italy. And she's sort of going shopping one day. She has to sort of catch the train to go into the bigger city sort of thing, and a bomb goes off in her compartment. So she sort of ends up in hospital, and there's a lot of other people in the same compartment too, and they've sort of lost family in this explosion, so they're not really quite sure where to go. They're at a bit of a loose end sort of thing. So she sort of invites them all up to her house sort of thing, which is kind of like, in some ways she does sort of also kind of like a hotel maybe in some ways too. She sort of just privately hotel. She sort of does let people stay there from time to time. So they go up there to sort of stay, and also got to stay close by because the policeman, he's doing an investigation into the bomb to find out who said it sort of thing. And just a sort of film just about sort of these different people's lives. We sort of find out their background, and so eventually sort of find out, who sort of set the bomb sort of thing. But definitely just a really great sort of movie, I thought. Just great sort of storytelling, and very interesting characters to it, and just agree with it. So I definitely would recommend that one. It's a really good one. My House in Umbria. Film classic, starring one of my favourite actors, Cape Fear, with Robert Mitchum, also Gregory Peck. Since you suppose I've probably brought out this one's about probably, but since you've got Robert Mitchum here, and he sort of gets released from prison, and sort of hunts down the lawyer that that sort of put him away, sort of thing. So he has a bit of a revenge against him, sort of thing, and sort of goes after him to tracks down his family, and just sort of about. So it's kind of like a thriller, I suppose, in some sort of ways. I think it was sort of remade by Mark Scorsese, which I never knew that. I knew there was a remake, but I never clicked that it was actually him that actually directed it. And starring another Robert De Niro. I've sort of seen the remake, but that was a long time ago, so I can't remember all that much about it. But this one's really good though. Really good, awesome sort of black and white, old style sort of movie. So that's Cape Fear. A film that I bought because it was a bad film which I bought because it was cheap. A Sylvester Stallone movie, not his typical sort of movie, but I just sort of started out for really cheap. I just sort of had to pick it up to, give it a watch. It's Stop or My Mum Will Shoot with Sylvester Stallone and what's her name? Elster Getty. She's obviously she's out of the Golden Girls TV show. Is sort of the mother. This gets terrible reviews online, and people say it's one of the worst films that Sylvester Stallone ever did, sort of thing. But I don't think it was too bad. It was a bit silly, and but it was hell, sort of few sort of fun moments to it, and some good sort of comedy moments to it. So I don't know, I just sort of picked it up because just to sort of see what it was like, sort of thing, because I'd sort of forgotten all about it. So that's that one. Then also, I've been on a bit of a sort of black and white classic movies kick recently. So I picked up the Greta Garbo collection because I have sort of heard that she's supposed to be one of the very sort of famous, or perhaps notorious, maybe might be a better word, actresses of the 1930s black and white era. I think I watched sort of all four of these films. Anna Christie, which I thought was really good. Very sort of simple sort of film. I think it's only sort of set in like sort of 3 locations, and some really great dialogue in it too, especially from there's a Garbo sort of meets kind of sort of seen this guy, and I think he's Irish, and he just sort of talks. I don't know, he talks funny, I suppose, but he's really just sort of, he's like a sailor, and he sort of, it's a bit hard to explain. He just sort of talks really strangely, sort of thing, and it's quite interesting to sort of hear what he's sort of saying. That's pretty good. I don't know. I suppose I won't go into too much details of all the movies, but I did sort of quite enjoy them all. Matahari, about she's kind of like a seductress, I suppose, and I think it's World War II, and tries to sort of tries to get sort of secrets out of these army officers, sort of thing. She's kind of like a spy, I suppose, in some sort of ways. Then you got Queen Christina, which I think is based on the true story of Queen Christina, I think in Russia. Is it Russia? Might not be. But she's like the queen, and she does end up sort of abdicating because she falls in love with a man, sort of thing, and she doesn't want to be queen anymore, sort of thing. Then you got Anna Karenina, which I think was sort of actually remade quite recently, I think. Just sort of, woman from a sort of rather sort of rich family, and she sort of, so she sort of gets married, and husband's a bit of a, I guess, always a bit of a prick to her. Played quite well by Basil Rathbone. He's a great performance by him. He's not necessarily a bad person. I think he's just very much he's very much sort of person about appearances, and marriage is for life. You can't get divorced, and he's very sort of stuck in the old way, sort of thing. And he's he doesn't sort of necessarily mind that she's having an affair, but it's just the fact that she's very sort of blasé about it, and people do have sort of noticed that she's sort of seeing someone else, sort of thing. Like he doesn't necessarily, he doesn't sort of, in some ways perhaps he loves her, but I think he's more interested perhaps of his status of having a wife than actually her, if that sort of makes sense. So, he's not sort of bad to her, he just doesn't sort of show any love, if that sort of makes sense. But I think I actually quite enjoy all the 4 films, and I think I've sort of bought a few more, which are sort of coming. So that's Greta Garbo collection. I also picked up sort of 20 film classics of Leading Ladies, which is it's got 20 films on each. It's like 4 discs, and there's 20 films, sort of old, sort of public domain sort of films. I've sort of watched a couple of them, and a couple weren't too bad. I think some of them get some pretty, like 4 out of 10 on IMDb. So I'm not necessarily expecting anything amazing. So that's Leading Ladies. I've also picked up Leading Men as well. So that's 3 films, so that should keep me entertained for quite a while. Anyway, so that's my update. Just sort of stuff that I bought recently and, you know, got around to watching, like I always say. Yeah, so I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another video. So, yeah, bye.